Hey guys, it's Matt Baker, the co-founder of the HMO platform, and welcome to my fridge. This is another edition of our whiteboard fridge session. We're going to be looking at some numbers, and this time we're looking at the question of, are HMOs more valuable than other properties? Now, this is one of the most searched for terms in Google when people are looking for information about HMOs. So I just thought I'd look at a few numbers and explain when properties are not more valuable as HMOs, because the answer is it depends. So let's take, for example, a property which you might buy for 150,000. Let's say that's your standard family home and that rents out for £750 per month. Now, we could buy that same property for £150,000 and then we can do some work to it, maybe extend it a little bit, convert it internally and make it into a 6-bedroomed HMO. Now, provided there's no Article 4 direction, then we could do that without any planning permission. So we might spend, let's say, £50,000 on it, and that's a 6-bedroom HMO, so that would be 6 times £500 a month, giving us grand total of £3,000 per month. But the difference between the house and the HMO is that for the HMO you've got some bills to pay. So for the bills, let's say 20% of your cost is for bills. So that takes off £600. So we're still left with £2,400 per month in your pocket. Now, this doesn't take into account any management fees and doesn't take into account any finance fees. So it's a very high level look at the difference. So assuming that you buy the property for cash and assuming that you manage it yourselves, this is the difference in what you would get. So there's pretty much a no-brainer to go out there and create the HMO. However, is that property more valuable? Because you bought it for the same amount of money, but you have spent some money on it. Now, the property is probably not going to be worth that much more than £150,000, £160,000 on that street. But you've made an asset which turns over £2,400. So it looks like on paper that it's more valuable because it turns over more money. But what's to stop someone else coming and buying that first house for £150,000, spending £50,000 on it and getting the same result? Well, there's nothing. So someone can just do that and replicate what you're doing. So this property is it's not worth any more than the sum of what you spent on it. So £150,000 plus £50,000. So it's highly unlikely to be valued any higher than £200,000. That's what we call a hybrid valuation, when a valuer will look at it and go, well, it's kind of an HMO, it's kind of a house, and it will generally only work when you've made that property unrecognisable from the family home next door. So you're looking at all ensuite properties, maybe you're putting a second kitchen in there, so you're making it more like a commercial property, which is a home for 6 people. So this would not be an example where that property is worth that much more, apart from what you spent on it. Now, there is something called a commercial valuation. Now, a commercial valuation is where we take a property and we put it through some kind of planning permission. So if you've got an HMO in an Article 4 area where there's a planning barrier for you to be able to create that new HMO, where you've got a large HMO, for example, that would be 7 or more people, that would require planning permission as well. So in those two examples, you would get a commercial valuation on the property. And let's take this same property. So we buy it for £150,000. And then instead of spending £50,000 on it, we're going to spend £100,000 on it because we need to make this property bigger. So we're looking at an extension, probably a loft extension or a dormer. So we spent £250,000. Now the rent for this one, let's say this is going to be now an 8-bedroom HMO. So it's now 8 times 500. So we've got £4,000, and the same rules apply. We're going to take off 20% for operating costs. That's worst case scenario. So we're going to take off £800. So we've got £3,200 in our pocket. So instantly, it's better off cash flow wise, but we have spent more money up front. But because we got planning permission, we can now get this property valued on the turnover of, valued on its turnover. So that's a commercial valuation. And I've done other videos on how to work out commercial valuation, so I suggest go and have a look at those if you want to know the in-depths about how to do it. But for this particular property, let's say this one turns over, it's £3,000 a month roughly, that's £36,000 a year. So that's after the costs. So in an area with a 10% yield, that would then be worth £360,000, and we've only spent £250,000 on it. So that is an example of how we can get a property that was a house to be a large HMO which turns over a lot of money, but also get that property to be more valuable. So in this example at the top, the HMO is not more valuable than a house. In this example here, let's change colour. You can see the green. It is. And the difference was planning permission, which is why whenever we do an HMO, we'll always do it to get planning permission, either in an Article 4 area or as a large, what's called a sui generis HMO. So that shows us that we can get more valuable property, but with the caveat that if you're in a high capital value area, this number here may be less than the value of it as a family home. So I hope that's been valuable. Really looking forward to catching up with you in the next whiteboard session.